Year. I hope your holidays were great, that you had good quality time with your friends and family, based on all the rules that we have to deal with, but we were lucky in terms of the weather being mild. We got a lot of sun. It was remarkably mild, which allowed us all to spend a lot of time outdoors, and I hope you had that opportunity to enjoy. And take care of yourselves and those who you are close to, so that together we're getting through this and things will be better in 2021. Before we start the meeting, I'll introduce everybody, and then we're going to have a moment of silence. Councillor Stephen Early, Councillor Dita Burku, Councillor Sydney Benizri, Councillor Mitch Kajowski, Councillor David Torjman, Councillor Oren Sabag, myself, Mayor Brownstein, and then we have with us our city manager, Tanya Branovich, co-city manager, Jonathan Schechter. We have Jason Prevost, our city clerk, and our associate city manager, Nadia DeFuria, as well as communications director, Darryl Levine, making sure that everything runs smoothly. So as you all know, we're in lockdown right now. The situation has been difficult. We've lost a lot of lives. The Premier today made a plea to all Quebecers to be particularly careful with individuals who are 65 years and over, who represent 80% of the individuals who are in hospital and 80% of the deaths, or I think it was 90% of the deaths. So his plea to all Quebecers was, until we can get our most vulnerable population, 65 and over, vaccinated, that we should be particularly careful to not put them in contact with too many people, whether it's their children or grandchildren, to do our best to keep them protected during this difficult time. The city of Côte Saint-Luc has done its best during the lockdown. I'll give you an update after we have a moment of silence for all those who are infected, praying for their speedy recovery and remembering all those that have passed. Ok, merci tout le monde. Ce n'était pas facile. C'est pas facile d'être dans la situation où on est maintenant, mais on voit qu'il y a une lumière dans le tunnel qui va arriver bientôt. Et si on fait le nécessaire, tout le monde, on va arriver en bonne santé. We have to follow all the guidelines and do what's needed to bring the numbers down. And at the same time, we'll get the population vaccinated and be a much better situation, hopefully by the summer. But in the meantime, the city of Côte Saint-Luc has taken a lot of steps in the last few days, particularly since the lockdown was announced, to first understand the decree and figure out what we needed to do to give best possible service to our residents. So indoor facilities are closed, such as our arena and our swimming pool and city hall and the library for the time being, and we are providing services outdoors. All our recreational services are available outdoors, including all our the annex and all our skating rinks. We're adding on the signage to encourage people to go snowshoeing and cross-country skiing in our parks. The weather's been mild and beautiful for that, and we have our pickup service that continues at the library. So, and service at City Hall continues by phone. If you'll call or email, and our staff are in when needed. Of course, we are encouraging working from home from our staff as well, as we want to reduce contacts. And that is the directive from the provincial health authorities, that we should not go into the office unless we absolutely are required to do so. Of course, our public workers are required to be out on the roads and do their job, but those individuals from our administration at all levels are working from home whenever possible. But we're all available thanks to technology. So that is the good news in terms of that the city is still running well, and we're offering a lot of services to keep people active. We want you, if you're not to do anything that you can to bring yourself happiness. So whether it's taking out a book or a movie from the library, or doing a crossword puzzle, or listening to music, or whether it's doing activities outdoors, we're encouraging that you come up with things that make you happy and keep you fit and healthy. Of course, I do every day, whether it's online fitness or a workout outside, or, I was even outside on my balcony this weekend working out because the weather was good enough to do that. So we all have to do what we can to stay active mentally and physically healthy. I just wanted to, we're going to have question period in a minute, but I just want to make two more quick announcements so people are aware. The first being that on Wednesday, Councillor Burko and myself will be doing our presentation to the ARTM concerning all the transport recommendations that the City of Côte Saint-Luc has prepared in a brief, which include, as I've mentioned in previous meetings, a train station at Côte Saint-Luc Shopping Centre at Carey Square, an eventual tramway on the Cavendish Extension, among many other recommendations. And the way it works is you present a brief to the ARTM, and we have a lot of collaboration from other cities, including the City of Montreal. And hopefully a lot of our recommendations will come forward, which will improve the quality of life for our residents. And that also will involve in the future redevelopment of our three malls, the Côte Saint-Luc Shopping Centre, Cavendish Mall, and the Carey Square, with transit options available of one type or another, whether it is the train stations that pass by or the tramway. So we're encouraging everybody, if you're available, it's already posted, the link where you can watch our presentation on, and others as well, present to the ARTM at a link that's already on our website. It's on my page, it's on the Côte Saint-Luc page, and we will be promoting that so people can watch and give their ideas on how they would like to see the city move forward. Okay, and the other announcement, I think it's later on in the agenda, we'll be talking about ways in which we're going to help you stay connected during the pandemic, including the Go government said that he will be allowing this time during this lockdown for even non-essential businesses to provide curbside service. So we're moving in that direction, and we have a resolution that we're adding to the agenda at the end of the meeting to explain the manner in which our local businesses will still be able to provide you with merchandise that's not essential, and that you'll be able to pick it up roadside, as well as our referral services, that referral service initiative, which will allow you to not only get services from the City of Côte Saint-Luc, but also by checking our website or calling the city, we can refer you to the activity or service that our partner organizations can offer you. So now, Maître Provost, I would ask you to give us all the questions for question period.
Perfect.
Unless before I go on, if Councillor Burko wanted to say anything about the ARTM presentation, is there anything else you want to add on that, or is it okay? Because I know she worked very hard with the city manager, Tanya Brownvich. So
thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to say that the presentation is going to be given at 7 o'clock.
Wednesday.
It's at 6, but the Borough of Saint Laurent is on at 7. We're on at 7:30, and it's basically very much connected. And I hope that people can tune in. And if they don't, we're going to post the presentations and the PowerPoints on our websites. Thank you.
And thank you for all your hard work, as well as our city manager, Tanya Brownvich, who's really done an outstanding job preparing our brief. Okay, Maître Provost.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just really quickly to go through the rules for question period. So residents could submit questions before 5 p.m. the night of public council meetings. And for the second question period, the live chat will be opened at the end of the meeting. And we ask residents to refresh the page and post their question as well as their name, and the question will be answered. So we'll get started with the questions. The first question is from Toby Van Lolo. The resident lives on Windfall and Midway. Over the many years, I have brought the issue of traffic on our streets. We moved into our home because it was a cul-de-sac. The removal of the cul-de-sac without advising the citizens concerned is unjust. At the present day, new signs of no parking were added on November 10th, again with no consultation. I brought this to the attention of Sidney Benizri, our councillor. His response was to inquire with the traffic committee first and foremost. Changes of this nature should have included the citizens, plus the effect has only allowed the increased traffic from local school and school buses to speed through our streets. Of the dozen homeowners, there are 6 that have sent text to complain. My question is, when will you remove the no parking and stop school buses from passing through our streets?
Thank you, Maître Prévost. The issue has been discussed this evening with your councillor, Councillor Benizri, as well as the traffic committee with Councillor Torchman, who chairs the traffic committee, and will be studied further, but I'm going to allow Councillor Benizri to respond.
Merci, Monsieur le maire. Comme vous l'avez mentionné, on en a discuté. Ça a été déjà apporté dès que j'ai été contacté par Toby Benolo. J'ai effectivement bien reçu les textos que j'ai transférés à l'attention du comité trafic. Je sais que j'ai eu l'occasion de parler avec d'autres résidents aussi qui habitent sur la rue Midway et Windfall. Je sais que c'est un problème qui dure déjà depuis très longtemps. Je sais que c'est vrai qu'il y a des signes no parking qui ont été installés dernièrement. Une des raisons qui ont été installées, c'est qu'on a eu aussi quelques plaintes de résidents comme quoi la rue Windfall était très étroite et que c'était un problème au niveau du trafic, surtout quand il y avait 2 voitures qui étaient stationnées sur les côtés de la rue. Et c'est une des raisons pour laquelle ça a été mis. Mais ce qu'on a rediscuté encore ce soir, c'est de revoir que le comité trafic puisse se pencher encore une fois sur un peu la situation de ces 3 rues, parce qu'on parle de 3 rues qui sont connectées ici. On parle de Windfall, Midway et Irving Lantern. C'est vrai qu'il y a eu du développement qui a été fait, ça fait déjà quand même quelques années, depuis 2007, et c'est quelque chose qui va être revu, et j'espère que d'ici la fin, le comité trafic va se réunir d'ici la fin janvier, et qu'on pourra revenir avec vraiment des solutions qui vont satisfaire nos résidents. Merci.
Merci, le conseiller ministre. Merci. Okay, the next question, please, Maître Prévost.
The next question is from Marissa Seidel-Dubrovsky. Premier Legault has stated that within the confines of his lockdown and curfew, public libraries are to remain open for book circulation and that public access to the internet should be available for students in high school and to be able to study. Accessing only pickup and drop off of books is not what the province recommended, and indeed, Montreal's large public library is about to open this week for just this. Is a smaller city like Côte Saint-Luc unable to control usage according to guidelines, while a massive city like Montreal does exactly that? Considering the public library is part of our budget and it is a provincial recommendation to have them remain open, why does Côte Saint-Luc feel the need to ignore provincial recommendations and deny access to an essential service that so many families rely on? And if we are losing the service, can we then expect that there will be a reduction in actual cost on our next budget for the library to reflect this month-long absence in service?
Okay, well, thank you for the question. I'll start with budget. We've done our budget this year based on all the changes that we are affected based on COVID-19, including the fact that our library has been closed since March the 12th, and we have no intention of opening it in the near future. So our budget for 2021 reflects the changes in revenues and expenses for the library as well as all our departments. Why it's closed? Well, it's very simple why it's closed. The city of Côte Saint-Luc was the first to mandate masks. We're the first to ensure that we are the safest, we try to be the safest place where you could live during the pandemic. And one of the things we did on March the 12th, the day after the pandemic was declared, was close the library. And it's been closed throughout the period, except for a short period when numbers were low in the summer, where we allowed for a very limited reservation system. But now we are in the worst part that we've ever been in the pandemic. The numbers have never been this high. We're in a lockdown situation. We're in a curfew, which is the first time in the history of Quebec that we're in a curfew situation. And it would be irresponsible, in our opinion, to open up the library. We've closed the other facilities, and we're certainly not going to open up another indoor facility when we know that the virus is transferred by particles, particularly indoors. So whether it was a recommendation, and if anybody was listening carefully to Mr. Legault's words at the time, he said that there was an issue with certain individuals who may not have access to internet, and therefore he was going to allow libraries to open up so those teenagers who may not be in school would have a place to go if they didn't have internet at home. Well, fortunately, in the city of Côte Saint-Luc, we haven't had any requests from individuals who have been unable to receive internet. It is a separate issue for us, and if that issue arose, we would certainly want to find ways to help those kids. But we wouldn't be opening up our library. That would not be responsible. It's not the recommendation of staff. And in fact, the decree, which took a while to be drafted, is now out and written. And if you read it, you'll not find anywhere in the decree a requirement or even a recommendation to open up the library. I know Mr. Legault's allowing it, and he said it in his press conference, but it's not written in the decree. It's not a requirement. It's not even a recommendation in the decree. It was only verbally stated by Mr. Legault. And for those places where they're opening up their libraries, that's their decision, and that's fine. But we are not going to be opening up the library until we're in a situation where we feel that it can be safe. And I want to see if there's any other stats that I wanted to tell you, but you know, the positivity rate in Côte Saint-Luc is not great. We have a lot of cases still, just like the rest of Quebec. We're in fact above the average of Montreal, and we don't want people to get COVID-19 in our facilities. We would feel very responsible should somebody get infected and, God forbid, die as a result of attending one of our facilities. Councillor Torchman, did you have a question? Did you want to add?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, I just wanted to add, you know, I agree with the recommendation of staff to keep the library closed at this time. I'll get into a few more things that the library offers, but the book pickup is serving 150 odd residents regularly. If we were to open it up, it would severely limit that capacity, and we wouldn't be able to service that many residents anyways. So the benefit to the residents by keeping the library closed and leaving the book pickup open far outweighs you know, any possible dangers that we would have by opening up the library. So I agree with the recommendation, and I think it's a solid one.
Thank you, Councillor Torchman. Next question, Maître Prévost.
Next question is from Norman Sabin. Many drivers have complained it takes too long to exit Côte Saint-Luc, so I thought I would make a suggestion to improve traffic flow and decrease GHG emissions. Fleet has 4 sets of traffic lights between Randall and Queen Mary. Each has an 85-second cycle time, 55 for Fleet and 30 for the cross streets, Randall, Pinedale, Netherwood, and Queen Mary. The lights are synchronized green, 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 red, eastbound, green, red, 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 westbound. At Cavendish and Fleet, there's a double left turn onto Fleet controlled by signals. These signals have an 80-second cycle time, as do those at Merton. The problem is drivers turning left on Fleet often miss the three greens at Randall, Pinedale, Netherwood, because 80-second cycles cannot be synced with those 85. If the cycle times along Fleet were 80 seconds, the left turn onto Fleet could always be in sync. For example, I would have Randall turn green 15 seconds after the double left. The new 80-second cycles along Fleet could be split 55-25 or 50-30, as well convincing Hampstead to suppress the 10-second flashing green at Queen Mary for Fleet westbound during the morning rush hour would be a big plus for eastbound traffic. In addition, if the cycle times at Kildare, the Avenue, and Mackle were 120 seconds, drivers would get more greens during driving from Mackle to Merton and vice versa. The resident said that if someone needs to contact him, they could feel free to contact him for clarification, as this is it's a technical question here. So Thank you.
Certainly, thank you. And thank you, Mr. Sabin. I don't know if you're an engineer or consultant, but you certainly did your homework and gave us some suggestions that are far beyond my area of expertise. I'm a lawyer, but obviously you have some background and some good information and ideas. What we will do, you left your phone number, and I thank you for that. We'll have our engineering department call you. It is a tricky street. There's no doubt about it, because of, Fleet goes through, goes all the way through Côte Saint-Luc and Hampstead, and Cavendish has its own logic. So yeah, it's complicated, but I think you have some knowledge that could be useful for our engineering department. So I will definitely make sure that they call you this week to discuss your ideas. And thank you for that. And the next question.
Yes, so this is the last question. It's from Neil Dubrovsky. I'm a new resident of Côte Saint-Luc. My question is regarding the public recycling, most street corners and in parks. I was walking one day last week and noticed a city worker taking off the lids of these recycling and trash bins and dumping the garbage into the recycling side, and then emptying everything into a garbage bag and then into the truck with no division between recycling and garbage. The worker clearly saw the confusion on my face and freely said that everything in the recycling side is contaminated by people not respecting the difference between garbage and recycling. I would like to understand if the city does in fact have a recycling program, why it does not seem to be followed by Public Works, and if it is a Public Works decision to just lump all the garbage and recycling together. Why deceive the public into thinking there is a recycling program at all? Why not just put out more and larger garbage bins and get rid of the recycling?
Yeah, it's a question of education and process. We definitely have our program, and why we have these bins. First of all, it was a grant from the government which allowed us to purchase these bins, and we hope over time people are going to use them correctly. But when they're used incorrectly, we have a problem. We've gone, as some of our councillors, like Councillor Italy, have been encouraging buildings to go for a 3-chute system, where you live in a building and you can have recycling, garbage, and composting in 3 chutes. But what happens when an individual makes a mistake? Everything gets contaminated. And this is a problem that we live with today, as people aren't that apt at knowing what to put into which bin or what to put in which chute if they live in an apartment building. And we're going to have to educate. And over time, hopefully, we're going to get it right. But I don't know if Councillor Italy looks like he wants to add to it. So I'm going to pass it over to him.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have to admit I wasn't aware of this issue, but what I can say to the mayor's point is that it has been a problem. Going back many years since Côte Saint-Luc first initiated the Blue Bin program, and again with the organic waste collection, it has been a problem with people putting the wrong material in the bin. And as the mayor mentioned, when someone does that, it is contaminated. What happened with Côte Saint-Luc's recycling, and for the recycling from the city of Montreal, and I would say most of the province of Quebec, is for many years, a lot of the recycling was actually shipped to China. I'm not sure how many people are aware of this, but much of the recycling from the eastern half and North America in general was sent to China. If you can imagine, a lot of ships were crossing the ocean from Asia full of material. They would return with recycled material. What they found, though, was a lot of the recycled material had contaminants. And because of that, they are no longer taking recycling from many of the cities in North America, and same with Montreal. And part of it is to do with the economy and production and so on. But all that to say, one of our goals is to improve let's say the quality of the recyclable material, and that comes through education. Now, because of COVID, we've let's say been spread a bit thin in terms of resources, but hopefully once this pandemic is done, we'll be able to focus again on education in terms of reminding residents what goes in the blue bin, what goes in the brown bin, and of course residents will be getting more information in the next few weeks about the black bin, which is going to be for garbage or for trash. And again, we hope through this campaign and through the education, residents will be using the correct bin, reducing the amount of waste that goes to the wrong one, and trying to divert more from landfill. And that's ultimately the goal. So definitely We appreciate the feedback, and it's something we're going to continue to work on. Thank you.
Thank you. So if there's no further questions, that's it for tonight, Maître Prévost?
Yeah, that's it for first question period. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to go to item number 2, which is approval of the minutes. Councillor Benizri. We have minutes of December 14th, 21st, and 23rd.
Ok, merci, merci Monsieur le maire. Est résolu que les procès-verbaux des séances des différents conseils en date du 14 décembre, 21 décembre et 23 décembre soient et sont adoptés par les présentes telles que soumises.
OK. Proposé par le conseiller Benizri et appuyé par le conseiller Jafsky, je pense. OK. Est-ce qu'il y a des discussions? Tout le monde en faveur? OK. C'est accepté unanimement. And now we go to number 3, business arising from the minutes. And then we go to number 4, which is departmental reports. Councilor Gajowski.
Mayor, I hereby move the monthly departmental reports for the month of December.
Moved by Councilor Gajowski, seconded by Councilor Sebag. Any discussion on the departmental reports? Councilor Sebag.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So obviously we keep on talking about unprecedented situations, and with this new curfew and lockdown that's been announced, I wanted to say a couple of words on our very own public security. So we've done, and this is again some of the efforts that our Director of Public Security has done, is to make sure that you know, for folks that do have questions, that are not aware of or don't have access to the internet, that can't listen to actually what's going on, that our dispatch, our call center has all the information to possibly answer these questions. One thing is for sure, the role of public security remains the same throughout the year. If there are certain issues related to gatherings, people breaking the law in terms of the curfew, et cetera, even if our public security notice that, they will refer or call the police. And so I'm just making sure that everybody's aware of some of the responsibilities that we have as a city, and some of the responsibilities that our great public security officers have as well. So they won't intervene, but they will call the police, much like most people should. In this particular case, these are police matters. Otherwise, I want to commend everybody working so hard. All my colleagues on the front line. It's a very, very violent second wave, and it's being felt throughout. So stay safe, everybody, and hope 2021 gets better real fast. That's it for me, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Sebag, and thank you for everything you're doing for all of us. Councilor Torjman, and then Councilor Erdely.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I want to reiterate Councilor Sebag's comment that I hope everybody's staying safe, and I definitely want to thank all our frontline workers. With reference to the library, I just want to say, there's, even if the library is staying closed, this virtual reference library is still open. Virtual programming every day at 2 p.m. There's Joe Schwartz, there's various authors, music, art, book reviews. There's virtual programming for teens at 5 and 5:30 on Thursdays. Virtual books, poetry, art, music, and movie clubs. And we also have reading buddies and a version of homework help after hours. We are, this one thing that I'm looking into is for those that don't have internet, trying to find a solution for those kids that do need it. So that's something that I'll be looking into. Juste pour répéter un peu, la bibliothèque offre des références virtuelles, la programmation virtuelle à 2h ou 14h chaque jour, avec Joe Schwartz, des auteurs variés, de la musique, de l'art, des critiques de livres, de la programmation virtuelle pour des ados entre à 17h et 17h30. Tous les jeudis, il y a des livres virtuels, de la poésie, de l'art, de la musique, et même des ciné-clubs pour des différents films à travers la semaine. So there's a lot of programming available through the library staff, and I want to thank them all for the hard work, and our library director, Janine, who's making sure that our staff is offering top-notch services to all of the residents. There's also very important on January 17th at 1 p.m., Danielle Shavit, the former director of the Mossad, will be, we're going to be hosting him with Aaron Rand, and he's going to be talking about his book called The Mossad in Pursuit of a Safe and Secure Israel. So that's January 17th at 1 p.m. The Zoom link will be advertised throughout. I want to thank Mike Cohen, our co-counselor Mike Cohen, who brought this to us, and it's promising to be a super interesting event. So please join us on the 17th. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Looking forward to that. Councillor Erdely.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to share a few items. So first, just some data that I'd like to mention. To date, to the end of December, we've had 164 residents applying for car shelters or tempos, and 176 residents applying for water filter rebates. And we hope to have more in the upcoming year. And again, residents have two options, either the $50 option for the Brita style filter or the $200 rebate for a reverse osmosis filter, generally the ones that go under the sink. On the finance side, the tax bills are being printed in the upcoming days and should be mailed by January 22nd. The due date for the first installment is February 24th, and for the second installment on May 25th. And a reminder that the average home, so which was at a 14.2% increase in their evaluation, so the average residential property has a 0% tax increase, so no tax increase. So hopefully when residents see their bills, they'll get a sense. If you want, you can access your bill online as well. It'll be available also around January 22nd online. And if you want, you can always look at your evaluation by going to, if you search Eval Web Montreal on Google, you'll get the site and you can look up your property value and compare it to the previous roll if you want as well to get a better sense. And just to reiterate, Councillor Sabag and Councillor Torchman, I encourage all residents to try to stay safe. The numbers in Côte Saint-Luc are quite high. Right now, we're looking at over 5,000 per 100,000 residents. So that works out to roughly 1 in 20 Côte Saint-Lucers who either are positive now or have been positive. We want to try to prevent more residents from catching COVID. So please do your best to follow the rules laid out by the Premier and the provincial government, and of course the City of Côte Saint-Luc as well. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Right. Yeah, that statistic is based on all individuals that have gotten COVID since the beginning of the pandemic, 1 out of 20. It's not the positivity rate at the moment, it's an accumulation. Yeah, but the positivity rate is very high right now. Obviously, we're at the peak. So any other discussion on the departmental reports? So it's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Carried unanimously. And we move on to the next item is financial services. We're going to have Councillor Erdely move them and then other councillors second them. So we'll start right at the top, Councillor Erdely, with item number 5. Hey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Be it resolved that bylaw 2559, entitled bylaw 2559, authorizing a loan of $1,549,000, including professional fees for the replacement of various lead service lines throughout the territory of the City of Côte Saint-Luc, be and is hereby adopted.
Moved by Councillor Erdely, seconded by Councillor Torchman. Any discussion?
So to give some background, so this is for a loan bylaw to borrow money, and we're going to have a series of these coming up. This first one is regarding replacements of lead service lines. So right now we are sort of in an awkward position in that the city has only done testing on a few hundred homes And most of those tests were actually done under the old testing criteria, with the government just changing it in the last year. The plan originally was this summer to test all 3,000 homes where we suspect there may be lead service lines, but because of COVID, it was very difficult, if not impossible, to do that. So those tests will be done over the next 2 years. In the meantime, there will be some lead service line replacement. So the goal for 2021 is to replace 83 lead service lines and to do 234 pneumatic excavations, which is where we check to see if the service line is lead or copper, and see which side, if it's the resident side or the city side or both. Many of these will be done on streets that are planned to be repaved, which we'll talk about in a few moments when we get to that. So this is for those 83 lead service lines to be done in the year 2021. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Early. Any further discussion? Okay, I have some to add if nobody else wants to speak first. So Councillor Early explained the situation where we are now and what this particular bylaw is about in order to cover those 83 service lines. Now, as we move forward, the city is constantly figuring out what is the best way to have a strategy to replace our lead pipes and to resurface our roads. Because when you open up a road, that's the best opportunity for you to deal with the pipes. And once we have the 3,000 tests done, we're going to be in a better position to understand which streets have a lot of service lines that need to be replaced, and we'll be able to make a plan in terms of what streets to do with which pipes at the same time, which is more cost effective, and you're not ripping up the road in different parts. You're taking the whole road and doing all the pipes. So that is the strategy that we're thinking makes the most sense. But how do we get there at the same time as educating the potential, not all of them, but the potential 3,000 homes who may be having lead in their water to do the right thing now and not drink lead in your water? Because you don't have to drink lead in your water. And that's why last year we started with the $50 rebate for a filter. And for 2021, we've implemented the $200 rebate for the osmosis style under your sink filter. But that's not enough. We need to be proactive. So I've been speaking to our urban planning department, our city manager, that we should go and speak to all those individuals who have had tests that are positive and let them know that if they're not going, if it's their choice, if they want to go ahead next year, if they want to go ahead and change their line, this is with our procedure right now. If you're not going to have the option in the future, because when we have 3,000 tests, we're not going to change everybody's pipe that year. So people have to know now that they don't need to drink lead in their water and they should get osmosis filters. That's really the way to go. Anybody who might have lead in their water and has a concern should get the osmosis filter. That's why when you get the bad news after we do the test, you say, okay, it's not great news, but I don't have to drink any lead in my water because I have an osmosis filtration system under my sink. So I want us to be more proactive, to reach out by letter, by phone, by whatever means, support from the councillors of the district to make sure that every home that might have lead in their pipes should know that they should be taking advantage of the $200 rebate program to get the osmosis filter, so that when we test their line next year, even if it requires replacement, they'll already be drinking clear water. That is the way we need to go. And we need to be proactive. So I need support from the councillors and staff to make sure that everybody knows we have this program and they should take advantage of it. Councillor Kajewski, you wanted to speak? Or no?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Oh, I agree with all your points. I agree with everything you said. And I want to be clear why I am going to vote against this resolution. And I'd like to partly explain why, because obviously I agree that the city needs to do everything in its power to provide safe drinking water to its residents, 100%. But I truly believe there are less expensive, more efficient ways to accomplish this, as you explained in your comments. Just a simple example would be when we change the public side of the pipe, we could provide a whole home reverse osmosis system that would provide lead-free drinking water for 10 plus years instead of doing that. And you look at the cost difference, and you're talking about the Cadillac of osmosis filters is $1,000 to $2,000, but the changing of a pipe is $15,000 to $20,000. So given that our long-term plan is going to be, as you explained, I think the short-term plan should maybe line up with that. So I hope I explained myself properly, but I will be voting against this resolution at this time.
Councillor Kajaski explained it properly, but we just need to explain why we have this money being spent this year. We made a commitment to those that were tested that if they change their pipe, we change ours. It's the commitment we've made for the past. It's not a commitment we're making for the future. But once you make it that commitment, then you're obliged to go forward on that commitment. When you're testing 40 homes a year, you're able to afford as a city to spend the money that we're spending. It might not be the best way to spend it because, like, we know we may be cutting up roads that are not being resurfaced that year. So that's why we're coming up with the new strategy that I just explained, which will allow people to live in their homes safely and drink clean water and not worry about changing. If they have to change their pipe this year, next year, the year after, they will still be drinking clear water. So yeah, it is your choice to vote against it, but we have a commitment to these residents to do what we said we were going to do. Councillor Berkeley.
Yes, so thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do agree with what you have just explained. I think it's logical and consistent with our position that we've taken so far. When we were testing 40 homes a year, the letter would go out to the residents that if your results are above the norm, then if you change your pipes, we'll change our pipes. That's fine when you're just doing 40. Now we're going to go to 3,000. Obviously, we can't apply that policy holus bolus like we're doing, for the individuals who want to change their pipes. But I also want to reiterate that, and Councillor Erdely just mentioned this, out of the 3,000 potential homes that do have lead, either lead pipes or lead in their water, only 176 applied for a filter rebate, for the grant, the $50 grant. 176 out of 3,000. So obviously we need to educate people. We need to go out there and explain to them that this is available and it's better to drink filtered water than not filtered water. And they can either get a Brita filter or they can do the osmosis, reverse osmosis under the sink. In fact, I've got residents who are asking me to recommend the type of reverse osmosis product or the plumbers. And this is something that we're discussing. I know that we don't usually want to make recommendations because, it entails our liability if should something happen. But clearly out of the 3,000 people who have this potential problem, we're gonna have to reach out to them. And a lot of them are in my district. It's an older district, and a lot of them Mitch Kajavsky's and Stevens. So we're going to have to reach out and tell them that this is definitely the option, this is the way to go. But I would remind Mr. Kajavsky that the Quebec government has asked us to have a plan to replace the pipes. So eventually we're going to have to replace the pipes. We're not going to be able to just sit with the filters. We must have a plan to replace the pipes. And when we replace our pipes, the residents are going to have to replace theirs. This is all consistent with what we've been doing in the past and what the government is asking us to do as well. So obviously I'm going to vote in favor of this bylaw.
Well, at present, we have the most proactive plan, and I don't know of other cities that are doing what we're doing in terms of offering filters, rebates, and now we're going to go to the promotion level in terms of letting people know, maybe we'll make a video, send it out to the 3,000 people, let them know this is the way to go, and this is the safe way to live with the house that you might have purchased, in the 50s or the 60s or whatever. So, yeah, all right. So any other comments? So it's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Carried with Councillor Kajavsky dissenting. And now we move to the next item, B. Councillor Erdely.
Hi. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry for that. for the delay there. The next one is, be it resolved that bylaw 2560, entitled bylaw 2560, authorizing a loan of $636,000, including professional fees for the resurfacing of roads and sidewalk repairs at various locations belonging to the city of Côte Saint-Luc, be and is hereby adopted.
Moved by Councillor Early, seconded by Councillor Georgeman. Any discussion?
So to give some background on this, the plan in the year 2021 is to do a significant amount of road resurfacing, more than we've done actually in quite a few years. So we're looking at actually approximately $4 million. So just to clarify, so about $3.5 million of this money is coming from the TEC grant, the TECQ grant, and that is a grant that is paid through by the gas tax at the federal and provincial government level, and about $636,000 being borrowed or financed through the city. And just to share some of the roads that are scheduled to be done, we have Côte Saint-Luc Road between Prince of Wales and Alpine, Westminster between Mackle and Mather, Davies between Mackle and Sir Winston Churchill, and Weissman between Hartwell and Sabin. And of course, there are, I should mention, a few roads that were planned to be done in 2020 that had to be pushed back, such as West Loop between Magnolia and Edinburgh. So all that to say, we're spending about $4 million, just over $4 million on roads and sidewalks. Of that, 636 will be borrowed and financed, and the remainder will be paid for by the TEC grant. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Early. Okay, moved and seconded. All in favor? Carried unanimously, and we move to item C. Councillor Early.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Be it resolved that bylaw 2561, entitled bylaw 2561, authorizing a loan of $410,000 to finance the costs, including professional fees to repair the underpass located on Côte Saint-Luc Road, be and is hereby adopted.
Moved by Councillor Early, seconded by Councillor Georgeman. Any discussion?
So to give some background, as the residents in Côte Saint-Luc may have seen, over the last several years, we've been prioritizing the 3 underpasses. So we started first by doing the pump stations at all 3, at Cavendish, at Côte Saint-Luc Road and Westminster. Then we did the support points and the sidewalks or the walkways. So we've done Cavendish and Westminster, and the last one to be done is the Côte Saint-Luc Road underpass. Because it is partly in Montreal, partly in Côte Saint-Luc, it takes a little bit longer to organize, but we have prepared a plan with the City of Montreal to do this in the next few years. So for 2021, it's the professional services, which means getting the engineering plans and specs prepared so that it can be done within a year or 2 after that. And this cost will be shared with the City of Montreal. Thank you.
Councillor Early, so it's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Carried unanimously, and we move to item B, Councillor Early. D.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So next, be it resolved that bylaw 2562, entitled bylaw 2562, authorizing a loan of $179,000, including professional fees for the purchase and installation of various traffic lights and LED streetlights at various locations in the territory of the City of Côte Saint-Luc, be and is hereby adopted.
Moved by Councillor, seconded by Councillor Kajowski.
So to give a bit of background, this is a project that I find very exciting. We have, in the last year or so, replaced 526 lights, street lights with LEDs. So we've been doing mostly the Cobra heads, more on the side streets. And just to share a quick story, as I often do, I do regular drive-throughs in my district to look for streetlights that are burnt out. Every streetlight in Côte Saint-Luc, for those that don't know, has a 4-digit code, 2 letters and 2 numbers. So I'll write these down, send them to Public Works so they can repair them as quickly as possible. But I was happy to see all of the lights, of course, that are LEDs on streets such as Ashdale, for example, the stretch of Wolseley in my district, for example, as well, are all working perfectly. They're bright, they're energy efficient, and not a single one burnt out. And these hopefully will not burn out. I don't want to guarantee it, but they say for 20 years, we won't have to replace any of these streetlights, whereas the average light probably has to replace every year or 2, and sometimes more often. So it'll become much brighter and the city will become much more efficient. So just to mention, 179,000 is only part of it because part of the amount being spent, because there are some funds from previous years that have been carried forward. But again, it's to continue the LED project and also for some replacements for traffic lights as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Erdely. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Carried unanimously. And we move to item number E. Councillor Erdely.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Be it resolved that bylaw 2563, entitled bylaw 2563, authorizing a loan of $210,000 for the purchase and planting of various trees on the territory of the city of Côte Saint-Luc be and is hereby adopted.
Moved by Councillor Erdely, seconded by Councillor Bercu. Any discussion?
So just to share, the last few years, we've been spending more in the vicinity of $50,000 to $100,000 on trees. We have stepped it up, and the plan is for 2021 and for the following years to spend approximately $200,000. The reason being, we have been forced to cut down many trees across Côte Saint-Luc, mostly because of the emerald ash borer. In the last few years, we've cut down more than 1,000 trees, and we are in a tree deficit right now. And keep in mind, of course, we're cutting down mature trees that could be 20, 30, 40, 50 years old and replacing them, of course, with saplings. So the goal is to catch up. The goal is to increase the canopy in Côte Saint-Luc. I see when I fly, although I haven't been on an airplane, I should say, since before COVID, but I used to see when I would fly to Montreal, to Côte Saint-Luc, you could see certain parts of the city have a beautiful tree canopy, some not as much. And our goal is for Côte Saint-Luc to increase the canopy. And just a note for residents, that may include, of course, trees being planted on your property or on the front part of your property, which is technically city land. And of course, we hope that we can count on your support when it comes to that as we try to catch up and reverse our tree deficit. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Erdely. Moved and seconded. All in favor? And no one's opposed, so we have more trees. Carried unanimously, and now we move to F.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Be it resolved that bylaw 2564, entitled bylaw 2564, authorizing a loan of $358,000, including professional fees for facility upgrades for various parks within the territory of the city of Côte Saint-Luc be and is hereby adopted.
Moved by Councillor Erdely, seconded by Councillor Kajowski. Any discussion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just to share some of the projects that are going to be used with these funds, it includes a basketball court at Rembrandt Park, redoing some of the fences and benches at the Trudeau Park baseball fields, replacing the benches at the Kerwin Park baseball fields, repairing or replacement of sections of the fence at the senior garden. And just to mention, in addition to this $358,000, there are some projects that are being done through the working fund, or through, I should say, through the surplus, and that includes some work at Emerald Park and Fletcher Park as well. Not through this, but separately as well during the year 2021.
Thank you, Councillor Erdely. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Carried unanimously, and we move to item number G.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Be it resolved that bylaw 2565, entitled bylaw 2565, authorizing a loan of $158,000 for the replacement of the carpet at the Eleanor London Public Library situated at 5851 Cavendish Boulevard.
Moved by Councillor Erdely, seconded by Councillor Torchman. Any discussion?
So just to share, the carpet was last replaced about 15 years ago at the library. I recall, actually it was just shortly after I was elected for the first time. As you can imagine, a lot of wear and tear and a carpet in a public area. And we need to do this for hygienic reasons, for reasons of allergies as well. So the carpets will be replaced in the upcoming year, or in the current year, I should say, 2021.
Thank you, Councillor Erdely. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Carry unanimously, and let them use those carpets soon. Now we move to item number H.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Be it resolved that bylaw 2566, entitled bylaw 2566, authorizing a loan of $263,000, including professional fees for the renovation of the building envelope at the Samuel Moskowitz Arena and Singerman Park Chalet, be and is hereby adopted.
Moved by Councillor Erdely, seconded by Councillor Kajowski. Any discussion?
So just to share, as residents know, we've invested quite heavily in the arena over the last few years, redoing the ice surface, mostly recently redoing the roof. And the last, I guess, sort of piece of the puzzle is the building envelope is repairs to the bricks. And as well, we'll be doing repairs to the building envelope and bricks at the Singerman Park Chalet.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Councillor Orsabag, Councillor Berku. Are you there? In favor? Okay. Anybody opposed? Anybody opposed? No. So it's carried unanimously. And now we go to item number I.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Be it resolved that bylaw 2567, entitled bylaw 2567, authorizing a loan of $105,000, including professional fees, professional services for the renovations of the building envelope at the Public Works building situated at 7001 Mackle Road, be and is hereby adopted.
Moved by Councillor Erdely, seconded by Councillor Ben-Isri.
So this next item is regards to the Public Works building. And I recall from the time my dossier was dealing with, my portfolio was dealing with Public Works, spending a lot of time in the building at that point, seeing points in the exterior and interior where there were some cracks, where possible water infiltration. So the goal is, of course, to make sure the buildings are in good shape, good condition. So for the year 2021, the plan is to hire professional services contract. So in other words, an engineering company that will help us prepare the specifications to do the work, most likely in 2022, in terms of the building envelope for the Public Works yard.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Anybody opposed? It's carried unanimously. And we go to I. Councillor Erdely. J.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Be it resolved that bylaw 2568, entitled bylaw 2568, authorizing a loan of $1,050,000 for renovations to the Public Works yard situated at 7001 Mackle Road, be and is hereby adopted.
Moved by Councillor Erdely, seconded by Councillor Ben-Isri. Any discussion?
So here too, I think back to when I was when my portfolio was Public Works. There were several issues with the yards, including drainage, including the surface of the yards being a mix of gravel and rock, and we had drainage issues where there were issues in work and safety issues for the employees as well. All that to say, the plan is for this year to do major renovations of the Public Works yards to make sure that it's best for the city and safe for all our workers for their health and safety.
Thank you, Councillor Erdely. Seconded. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Carried unanimously. Now we move to K.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Be it resolved that bylaw 2569, entitled bylaw 2569, authorizing a loan of $300,000, including professional fees for the roof of the Aquatic and Community Center building situated at 5794 Park Haven, be and is hereby adopted.
Moved by Councillor Erdely, seconded by Councillor Kajowski. Any discussion?
So this is to do some repairs on the roof of the ACC. We've had over the last few years some issues where there's been some water infiltration. And of course, we want to make sure that our buildings are all in good shape and of course will last many more years. So this is to do some repairs on the roof of the building.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Carried. Councillor Berku? Okay. Anybody opposed? Carried unanimously. Now we move to item I.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Be it resolved that bylaw 2570, entitled bylaw 2570, authorizing a loan of $441,000 for the purchase of vehicles and equipment, be and is hereby adopted. So just to, I guess maybe first, just to mention, I should say in general, for all these items, I just want to share that even though we are adopting these loan bylaws now, the actual contracts will be brought to council and voted on publicly for each of these items. And the same is true for the purchase of the vehicles. So we are adopting let's say an envelope for all the vehicles. However, each vehicle will come to council separately and be adopted at a public meeting. So this bylaw 2570 deals more with what we call the smaller or lighter vehicles. The heavy vehicles will come up in the next one, but just some examples include a six-wheel dump trucks that are replacing a six-wheel dump truck that's replacing a 2008 vehicle, a cargo van also replacing a 2008 vehicle, two public security vehicles, which the plan is for electric vehicles. We already have a few, so it's to have two more, some small tractors, which will be for sidewalk cleaning, replacing a 2006 vehicle, and an asphalt roller replacing a 2008 vehicle. Thank you.
Early, moved and seconded, all in favor. Anyone opposed? Carried unanimously. And now we move to M, heavy vehicles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Be it resolved that bylaw 2571, entitled bylaw 2571, authorizing a loan of $326,000 for the purchase of heavy vehicles and heavy vehicle equipment, be and is hereby adopted.
Moved by Councillor Erdely, seconded by Councillor Benizri. Any discussion? Go ahead, Councillor Erdely.
So just to share, so this is for what we call the heavier vehicles. So we have a six-wheeler tanker that's replacing a 2003 vehicle and a chassis truck cab that's replacing a 2008 vehicle. And the goal here, again, is to continue replenishing the fleet. We've done, just to share on a side note, although we haven't used them as much this winter as we have in previous years. But one of the things that the city has done is invested quite heavily in snow blowers, in the tractors and snow blowers over the last few years. So, which has enabled us to be so efficient in removing the snow. I recall when I first became a councillor, we had vehicles in the fleet from the 60s and 70s that were still being used in the 2000s, in the early 2000s. That were going on 30, 40 years old and would spend more time in the shop than they did on the road. Now all our snow blowers are less than 10 years old and in great shape. So we're able to remove snow much more efficiently. So it's been a credit to the council that's been so wise in terms of replacing older vehicles and keeping the fleet efficient. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Erdely. Moved and seconded, all in favor? Anyone against? So it's carried unanimously. And item number N now, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Be it resolved that bylaw 2531, entitled bylaw 2531, repealing bylaw 2443, authorizing a loan of $1,365,000 for renovating and upgrading the pump station located on Côte Saint-Luc Road, be and is hereby adopted.
Moved by Councillor Erdely, seconded by Councillor Georgeman. Any discussion?
So just to share, this one is different from the previous ones. So the previous motions or previous bylaws have been for loans for new projects. This is repealing an old bylaw for a project that's already complete. As I mentioned earlier, what the city has done is focus on replacing, first with the underpasses, replacing the pump stations. So under each underpass, you can imagine there's a pump so that in case there's a major rainfall, such as we had, and I always get mixed up, it was, I think, July 14th, 1987, I think it was. I see our Maître Schechter nodding. So yeah, so back then that was a major flood that flooded the Carrie Expressway for those who remember. So the goal is to make sure all our underpasses are in good condition. We don't have any issues. You may have seen the Acadie underpass on the 40, which often gets flooded on major rainfalls. We haven't had any issues in Côte Saint-Luc because we replaced all the pump stations. This one, the project is complete. So it actually ended up costing us, it cost about $1.4 million, though the city of Montreal covered half. So the cost to Côte Saint-Luc residents was about $700,000. The money ended up being paid for by the water surplus or water reserve, which meant the city did not have to borrow any money. So what we do when we don't have to borrow is we repeal the bylaw. So we do this so that for the provincial government's benefit, so that they don't see or appear, it doesn't appear that we have more money or that we're borrowing more money than we really need. And the analogy that I often give is it's like someone who has too many credit cards. It doesn't necessarily look good for your credit rating when you have too many credit cards or too many loans out there. So what we do is we cancel some of these bylaws so that it basically helps our credit rating with the provincial government. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Erdely. Moved and seconded, all in favor? Anybody opposed? Thank you. Carried unanimously. And now we move to the item number a resolution to approve the disbursements. Councillor Erdely.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Be it resolved that Côte Saint-Luc City Council approves the attached list of disbursements for the period of December 1st, 2020 to December 31st, 2020 for a total amount of $3,932,752.02 in Canadian funds, and that Treasurer Certificate number 20-0116 dated December 31st, 2020 has been issued by the City Treasurer attesting to availability funds to cover the described expenses.
Moved by Councillor, seconded by Councillor Burku. Any discussion to highlight in the disbursements?
So just to share, this month's a little bit more than normal, and normally we're in the lower 3 million, but we had a few extra expenses or on projects that have already been underway. So for example, there were some payments for the City Hall envelope. There was a payment for the LED streetlight project, as I mentioned, for vehicle purchases, for snow removal, and another big expense was on our which is a usual one for our monthly water contract with CMO. So those were the larger items in this month's or in the month of December's disbursements. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Erdely. So it's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Anyone opposed? So it's carried unanimously. And I would like to thank Councillor Erdely for his excellent explanations for all of those bylaws. Well done and well explained, so everybody understands exactly what we're doing. Thank you. And now we'll move on to item number 6, legal services, Maitre Schechter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Good evening. I'm going to table a resolution adopted by the Commission Municipale du Québec appointing Jason Prévost as the returning officer, le président d'élection, for the municipal general election in 2021. So
thank you, Maitre Schechter, and congratulations, President Prévost. So now we move on to the next item, which is 6B. Councillor Burku.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just gonna, just gotta get the resolution, sorry. So this is regarding the letter of credit. Be it resolved that whereas the current letter expired on December 25th, 2020, but was renewed for 3 more months, be it resolved that Côte Saint-Luc Council hereby ratifies the granting of the extension of an irrevocable letter of credit for 3 months until March 25th, 2021, under the same terms and conditions in order to secure the completion of the construction of the mixed-use building located within zone HM-6, the whole as per the said letter annexed here to as Annex B.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Burku, seconded by Councillor Erdely. Any discussion?
Okay, so there is a long sort of preamble to this, but basically when the building on the avenue was constructed, started in the year 2010, and then with the demolition, and then the construction went on 2012. The city requested that there be a letter of credit in order to secure the completion of various phases of the Cavendish Mall redevelopment projects, including this building on the avenue that we know as the Avenue. And some works are still not fully completed. So we are renewing the letter of credit, or asking that it be renewed until such time as all works are completed on this project, and that the certificate of use, I think it's called, be issued for that property. In other words, the owner of the property has put up a letter of credit in the amount of, it's $3.5 million. And we are asking that that letter of credit be renewed until March 25th, 2021, at which point we hope that all the works will have been completed and the letter of credit will be how should we say, it will be lifted. It'll be extinguished.
Okay. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Anyone? Councillor Sabag, you're in favor? Councillor Sabag? Yeah, okay. So everyone's in favor, no one's opposed. It's carried unanimously, and we move to the item 7, which is Parks and Recreation. Councillor Gajewski, 7A.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Be it resolved that the Côte Saint-Luc City Council hereby awards a contract pursuant to UMQ Group Tender Number CHI-2021-2022 to UBA Inc. for the purchase of 12% sodium hypochlorite in bulk for the 2021 and 2022 years for an estimated quantity of 55,000 liters each year for a total amount of $27,500 plus applicable taxes. That treasury certificates will be issued at the relevant times to attest to the availability of funds to cover the above described expenses.
Moved by Councillor Gajewski and seconded by Councillor Ben-Isri. Any discussion?
Just to briefly explain, the sodium hypochlorite, otherwise known, as liquid chlorine. This is for our indoor and outdoor pools for the next 2 years, which hopefully we'll be able to use very efficiently.
Hopefully, yes. Good health.
Yes.
So it's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Anyone opposed? It's carried unanimously, and we move to item B, which is notice of motion and a tabling. Councillor Gajewski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hereby give notice of motion that bylaw 2573 to be entitled bylaw 2573, creating the fee schedule for culture, sports, and leisure activities for the spring and summer of 2021, will be presented at a later meeting for adoption.
Thank you, Councillor Gajewski. We move to item number 7C. Councillor Gajewski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Be it resolved that the City of Côte Saint-Luc Council hereby decides not to exercise the 3 remaining option years of the contract awarded to Piscine PLPS Inc. following the public tender number C22-18-23, and therefore this contract is terminated. That the City Council hereby awards a contract for the maintenance services of its outdoor and indoor pools for the period February 1st, 2021 to January 31st, 2022, in accordance with the terms of tender number C-01-21 to the lowest conforming bidder, namely Redox Piscine et Spa, for a total amount of $59,360.50 plus applicable taxes. That treasurer certificate number 21-0027 was issued by the city treasurer to attest to the availability of funds to cover the described expenses.
Moved by Councillor Gajewski, seconded by Councillor Sabag. Any discussion?
It's pretty much self-explanatory. It's to award the contract for the maintenance services of both the indoor ACC pool and the outdoor pool, Park Haven pool.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Okay, anyone opposed? Carried unanimously. We move to 7D. Councillor Gajewski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Be it resolved that the Côte Saint-Luc City Council hereby awards a 1-year contract for the supply of chemical products to Aldest Inc. for the period January 1, 2021 to December 31st, 2021 for an approximate amount of $49,953 plus applicable taxes based on the same terms and conditions of those of the tender C-33-16-20, that the treasurer certificate number 21-0025 was issued to attest to the availability of funds to cover the above described expenses, that the city's general counsel be hereby authorized to sign a letter of agreement between the parties stating the terms and conditions of the contract.
Moved by Councillor Gajewski, seconded by Councillor Sabag. Any discussion?
This is somewhat related to the first item, that this is a chemical that maintains the clarity of the pool, of the indoor ACC pool only, and this contract is for 1 year.
So that's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you very much. Carried unanimously. And we move to item number 8, Public Works. 8A, the conseiller Ben-Isri.
Merci, Monsieur le Maire. Est résolu que le Conseil de la Ville, par la présente, exerce les 2 dernières années optionnelles du contrat conclu en vertu de l'appel d'offres numéro C-34-17-22 pour l'achat de matériel bitumineux octroyé antérieurement à construction TGL incorporé, et ce pour la période entre le 1er janvier 2021 et le 31 décembre 2022, pour un montant total n'excédant pas $100 000 plus les taxes applicables. Que si la consommation réelle pour toute portion d'année au contrat excède la quantité maximale estimée ci-dessus, l'excédent sera approuvé en conformité avec les procédures d'ordre de changement et le règlement sur la délégation de pouvoir de la ville. Que le certificat du trésorier numéro 21-0016 a été émis par le trésorier de la ville pour attester la disponibilité des fonds pour couvrir les dépenses ci-dessus.
Proposé par le conseiller Benizri, appuyé par le conseiller Sebag. Qu'est-ce qu'il y a de discussion?
C'est pour renouveler le contrat pour l'achat de matériel nécessaire pour réparer la chaussée durant l'été, la période estivale.
OK, proposé, appuyé. Tout le monde en faveur? OK. Accepté unanimement. Et maintenant, c'est B. Oui, B.
Oui. Alors, merci, monsieur le maire. Je vais juste à la prochaine page. Et voilà. Alors, merci, monsieur le maire. Est résolu que le conseil de la ville, par la présente, exerce les 2 années optionnelles du contrat conclu en vertu de l'appel d'offres numéro C-36-17-22 pour l'achat de produits sanitaires octroyés antérieurement à Prescott SM, et ce pour la période entre le 1er janvier 2021 et le 31 décembre 2022, pour un montant total n'excédant pas $57 570 plus les taxes applicables. Que le certificat du trésorier numéro 21-0020 a été émis par le trésorier de la ville pour attester la disponibilité des fonds pour couvrir les dépenses ci-dessus.
Proposé par le conseiller Benizri, appuyé par le conseiller. Est-ce que quelqu'un veut appuyer? Merci, le conseiller Sebag. Est-ce qu'il y a des discussions? Non, c'est clair. Tout le monde en faveur? Le conseiller Torchman? Oui, tout le monde en faveur. OK, merci. Accepté unanimement. OK, now we move to item number 9, which is urban development. Councillor Burku, 9.1, minor exemptions. 5792 Park Haven.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, sorry. Be it resolved that in accordance with the provisions of bylaw G18-0005, the request for a minor exemption regarding the property located at 5792 Park Haven, lot 5505096, be it is hereby approved. The whole is more amply delineated hereunder. The request is to allow for an existing 11-story multifamily dwelling, which forms part of an integrated project, to have 138 interior parking spaces instead of the minimum required 170 interior parking spaces, the whole notwithstanding the provisions of zoning bylaw number 2217, article 7-2-5.
Okay, moved by Councillor Burku, seconded by Councillor Torchman. Is there discussion?
Yeah, so just to explain a little further, the request was to reduce the number of underground parking spaces in order to build storage lockers, as well as creating a new apartment on the ground floor. This is the building, the high-rise building that's at the Park Haven and Trinity. And we definitely questioned the opportunity for why the property owner wants to do this. Apparently he needs more locker spaces. The apartments are not big enough to store all the stuff that people have. So he needs more locker spaces. We did send a letter. We asked the owner to send a letter to all the tenants to advise them of the relocation of the gym and the elimination of the party room. And the owner stated that they have not received any objections from the current tenants. The owner sent the proof of rented versus vacant underground parking spaces, confirming their claims of many vacant spots. And public security confirmed they have 0 long-term on-street parking permits for tenants of this building. So I think we did a thorough investigation, analysis, and we deem that this request is, receivable, and so that's why we are accepting it. I know that some people questioned this. I even saw some comments on our Facebook page, so that's why I wanted to give the detailed explanation. And the councillor for the district, Mr. Torchman, is also in favor, so I believe that this is appropriate at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burgoo. Councillor Erdely.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is one I know we've been talking about for a few weeks. One of the reasons they've mentioned for removing the party room and replacing it with an apartment is that it's not being used. The reality is the building is relatively new, and of course, party rooms have not been used since before the pandemic. My feeling is it makes more sense to wait to see if this party room could be used before deciding to convert it into an apartment. So that is one of the reasons I'm opposed to this. The other is in terms of the parking spaces. Again, I understand right now that not all the parking spots are being used, but again, the building is relatively new, and my concern is that at some point in the future they may need more parking spots. Already, my understanding is there was an exemption or derogation to reduce the number of parking spots. We would be reducing it further, and actually we're even adding more apartments and reducing the number of parking spots. And though it seems simple at some point in the future to convert those storage lockers back to parking spots, I imagine a reality once they do become once the parking spots become storage lockers, it's not necessarily something that can be done simply. So for these reasons, I'll be voting against this resolution.
Thank you, Councillor Erdely. Any other discussion? No. I would think one of the reasons why this particular building may have less cars than other is that it's located at a place where there's a lot of public transit as well. And of course, our plan and our dream for the future is to have within walking distance of that building, a tramway station that will go down Cavendish. Councillor Torchman. No, you were not asking to speak? Go ahead.
Sorry, I was having trouble with the mute button. I apologize. So I personally visited the parking lot. The building is fully occupied. There's a significant number of open parking spots, empty parking spots unused. A lot of the rentals apparently and evidently don't have own cars, and are, to be honest, our parking ratios are something that we're realizing as a council are too high, and so therefore that's why they're asking for, multiple buildings have been asking for derogations from the existing parking regulations, simply because our parking regulation is requiring too much parking relative to the occupancy. So that's why I'm voting in favor of this one.
Any other discussion? So moved and seconded, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Carried with Councillor Erdely dissenting, and now we move on to item number 10. Councillor Sabag. It's the stance on issues to be presented at the next
Yeah, I'm having troubles with my.
It's okay. You went on mute and you went off mute and then you went back onto mute. If somebody else has the resolution, wants to present it, that's fine.
Yeah.
I can second it. Go ahead, Councillor Torchman.
Thank you. C'est résolu d'établir l'orientation du conseil en vue des séances du conseil d'agglomération qui pourraient être tenues en février 2021 comme suite d'autoriser le maire ou son représentant dûment autorisé à prendre toute décision qu'il jugera appropriée sur les dossiers inscrits à l'ordre du jour des séances du conseil d'agglomération devant se tenir en février 2021 en fonction de l'information présentée lors de cette réunion, et ce, dans le meilleur intérêt de la ville de Côte Saint-Luc et de ses résidents.
Merci, conseiller Torchman. Appuyé par le conseiller Sebag. Merci. Est-ce qu'il y a des discussions? Tout le monde en faveur? Le conseiller Benizri? OK, merci. Appuyé unanimement. Et merci. On va aller au other business. Is there anything else on other business? And do we have another item we do have one other item. Councillor Berku.
Oh, I thought I copied it. Oh, sorry.
Resolution in support of local.
You know, I support, I apologize. I thought I copied it into my, just give me 1 second.
So this is what we were
I have it. Sorry.
meeting, which is
Okay.
a resolution in support of other business, which deals with our support for local business. And then we're going to move forward with eventually having, well, not eventually, hopefully very soon, curbside pickup through technology, using technology. Okay, Councillor Berku.
Sorry. I thought I had it. Now I lost it. Now it's coming back. I apologize. Here it is. Okay. So whereas over the past few years, the rise in online shopping has resulted in a decline in local retail, especially in shopping malls. Whereas commercial activity is an essential ingredient for a dynamic, thriving community and adds life to a street and neighborhood. Whereas the COVID-19 pandemic has pushed local merchants onto life support and accelerated the already existing trend manyfold. Whereas many of our residents, especially seniors, are afraid to visit our local shops in person for fear of getting sick, and businesses, both essential and non-essential, are struggling with providing safe and alternative ways for customers to buy from them. Whereas we as a city believe that there is an essential need to provide impactful support to our local economy in response to the current crisis, especially during the 2020-2021 winter months. Whereas Delavante's local e-commerce platform Spotfinity is a tool designed to enable local businesses to unite under one easy-to-use platform and deliver mobile commerce experiences that will help our local economy survive, grow, and prosper while providing an essential service to our residents. Be it resolved that the City of Côte Saint-Luc hereby agrees to support, promote, and encourage the use and adoption of local e-commerce platforms such as Spotfinity that support Côte Saint-Luc merchants, mall operators, landlords, and residents alike. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Moved by Councillor Berku, seconded by Councillor Kajowski. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. So basically, we have seen a serious impact on our local commerce. I don't have to tell anyone, if you go into the mall, the food court is blocked off. You can't even, eat a falafel in the food court anymore. The stores are shut. They're shut. They were supposed to be reopened January 11th. Now they're going to continue to be shut down until February 8th. This is having a very, very serious impact on our local commerce. And I think as a city, it is incumbent upon us to do everything in our power to allow local commerce to continue to survive, just to survive. So if we can set up pickup points at the mall, if we can even set up winter stations around the strip malls so that people can buy and maybe eat something on a picnic table, whatever we can do, we need to support local commerce and encourage our local residents to shop locally. And now with this shutdown, with this lockdown, I mean, we hope that people aren't going to be running to Costco or other places outside of the city. We want them to shop locally and understand that our businesses are the basic support for our whole, local budget. We need our local businesses in order to survive because they contribute a lot to the revenues and to the local budget for the city of Côte Saint-Luc. So whatever we can do, we need to do. And this is one aspect. And I think by next week, it should be announced and it's going to be a great improvement for the local merchants, essential and non-essential, because you saw Legault mentioned it. And it's because the innovation department, the Ministry of Innovation, is promoting this. Actually, they want, they want to promote e-commerce, and they want to have delivery points so that they don't have to spend, the merchants don't have to spend so much money on all the delivery apps, because that's costing a lot of money. The Uber and the DoorDash and all the rest of it are eating into the profits of the restaurant and food, food merchants. So this is going to be great.
It's going to be excellent. So as we try to be innovative, particularly during these difficult times, we are a smart city. We went into that smart city challenge, and we came in the top 10, and we got $250,000, and we learned a lot. And this is just applying all what we learned. Even though we didn't win the 10 million, we still have ideas and possibilities to go for other opportunities for grants and continue what we did with smart cities and helping seniors with technology, having better quality of life in their homes. And for the general public, this is absolutely wonderful. It was announced that during this lockdown, you're going to be able to go and pick up curbside pickup, but it doesn't happen by itself. So we're going to make it happen by ensuring that there will be signage where people can go and pick up goods that they order from local merchants in our city. There's going to be an app, and you go on the app, and it's going to be showing you every single merchant in our city, essential and non-essential, that is signed on. And there are a lot, and we're encouraging all of our commerce to sign on, because if they sign on, it puts them back in business, and they're able, with very minimum staff, to provide the service. They just have to, because they're not running a store day to day, they're just bringing the item to the curbside for the person to pick it up and put it in their car. But you'll be able to order, ideally, from all of our, most of, and hopefully eventually all of our local businesses, and that will help them and also help us be able to receive everything that we need. So this is a great initiative, and I'm very, very proud of the city and Councillor Burku's involvement, and the city in general for getting involved in this initiative. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. Any other discussion? Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Okay, anybody against? Carried unanimously. And then we go to second question period.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As of right now, we have no questions. I'm just going to remind the public that if they want to submit a question, to please refresh the YouTube page, and that questions during second question period are on the agenda only.
Okay, so while we're waiting for some more questions, I'll just reiterate the fact that we want people to have the best possible quality of life during this lockdown and always. So this initiative is great. We're also going to be ready to launch within the coming week or so our referral service, listing all the different partner organizations that can offer all types of services. So it could be emotional support. It could be your teenager who needs counseling or needs to be involved with people their age in an activity, and maybe the city doesn't offer it. We're going to partner with religious institutions, with community organizations, with private enterprise, and allow everybody, whether it's the Coming Center for Seniors, everybody who needs something that they want to do while they're stuck at home, that they can do it virtually. And there will also be, for those who aren't connected to the internet, on that list, people that can speak to you on the phone. If you need to be connected on the phone and you're isolated, there's all kinds of organizations. There's food delivery services, different, whether it's MATA or various others. Many of the churches and religious institutions are providing food for those who need it. So depending on what your need is, we want to make sure that we can provide it. If we don't provide it directly, we'll do it through one of our partners in this referral service. So with that and this app, having curbside service, hopefully everybody in our city will be able to have their needs met. Do we have any questions?
We have no questions.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I know we didn't discuss this in committee, but I just want to throw it out there, and maybe we could think about it for the next council meeting. Since we are all in shutdown, we're all at home, I'm just wondering if we can't somehow replicate what we used to have when we were at the council meetings, where members of the public would just, chat with us at the end of the meeting. I'd like to propose, and maybe we can all think about it over the next couple of weeks, that at the end of the next council meeting, that we open up a kind of a Zoom chat, and that people can just come on and chat with us and raise issues that came up during the meeting, or just sort of general items, and we can have a discussion in a less formal fashion, but certainly something that's informative and where we can have an exchange. So I'm just throwing it out there. I just feel like maybe it's time that we try that and try and you know, have more exchanges with our residents. There's so many issues that we brought up tonight. For example, the issue of the lead pipes and the issue of the, you know, of the filter rebates and the upcoming presentation that we're going to give on the 13th, two days from now at 7 o'clock at the ARTM. I mean, there's lots of issues that we could discuss. We just don't have the time within the formal format of the council meeting. So I want to throw it out there and see if we could do that for the next council meeting.
I went to, as I said already, we went to the Men's Club Gala and they had a wonderful format where to do it. I don't know if a council meeting is going to be the ideal format to have that type of discussion, but I think we can certainly have that type of discussion on YouTube evenings, and we should look into how we can do it. All right, so if there's no other business and no other questions, I'll call for
since we're throwing things out there, I'd like to wish my fellow councillor Torgman.
No. Which one?
Oh, he wants to wish him happy birthday.
I want to wish Councillor Torgman happy birthday. If we're throwing things out there, why not?
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Excellent. And it's today the birthday today?
I saw it on Facebook.
Okay, maybe we should sing him happy birthday.
Yes.
No, please. I've heard the group sing and maybe.
You lead.
Good.
Maybe Dita can go solo.
Yeah, all right. Okay,
Dita
so,
has a
Next
voice.
time.
move, do we have a mover to adjourn? Moved by Councillor Berkeley, seconded by Councillor George.